Okay. Hi. I'm Nisha. I'm a second year medical student at Tulane, and I am a triathlete. Um, I'm not sure, like, do you want me to just give like a general? So I was a collegiate triathlete at USC. I did it for around 3 years. I did around like 5, 6 races a year. I taught spin to the triathlon team, and then I also competed within the collegiate circuit with the triathlon team. I went to nationals once, my junior year in Alabama, which was really fun and also really hot. And yeah, so I did that for a while, and then I took a year off between uh, college and medical school, and then in at Tulane now, I am really interested in orthopedic sports medicine. I'm was this summer was a fellow of the Women's Sports Medicine Institute program, so I did a lot of research looking at different athletic injuries that can occur in female athletes. We looked at ACL tears and stress fractures specifically. I was also in clinic shadowing and like seeing orthopedic patients with like proper PPE and everything like that. I also work a lot with the Tulane Orthopedic Department. I'm doing a lot of different types of research with different attendings, and I'm on two local triathlon teams. One is Next Level Triathlon, and I'm also like being coached by the members of that group. And then I'm also on another local triathlon team called Hard Ink, and it's pretty fun. I'm definitely the youngest on all those teams by like maybe 10, 15 years, but I've made a lot of really good friends on both those teams, and they're kind of like parent figures for me, and the community aspect has been really, really important in just helping me stay motivated, because I think that all of my races are going to get canceled this year. I had two that I originally was planning. I have one in a few weeks in Augusta, which hasn't canceled yet, but it probably should be canceled. And then I had another in like 3 weeks after that in Texas, which also hasn't been canceled yet. So I'm not even sure if I'm going to race this year, but I'm still training like I'm going to race. So I do around 15 hours of training a week. I bike around 120 to 150 miles a week. I run around 25 miles a week, and I swim around like 7,000 to 8,000 yards a week. So a lot of training. Um, yeah. I'm trying to think, does anyone have like things that they specifically want me to talk about, or
Yeah, I was wondering if maybe you could touch on how you balance being so invested and competitive with, triathletes and training while still being, a medical student and, pursuing a career in medicine.
I think even in college when I did it, I really loved triathlon because it just gave me a lot of structure to my day. I was like doing a lot of other things in college too. I was president of the debate team, which was a big time sink, and that's actually how I know Haley's sister Hannah. She was like on the debate team with me. But I really like the structure that competitive sports brings to my life, at least. So every morning, even if I'm not doing a workout at 5 a.m., I'll get up at 5 a.m. and either like I'll do a workout or I'll just like start studying immediately. And then on days where I have two workouts, so like I'll have like a run or a bike in the morning, and then I'll have like a swim in the evening, I'll make sure to get up really, really early. I like to study on my bike, so that helps. It's kind of like crazy, but I'll do like flashcards on my bike during the week. And then on the weekends, I'll do my long workouts. So like this Saturday, I biked like I think 70 miles with my friends, which is usually what I do on Saturdays. And then this morning I ran 11 miles at like 5 a.m. So usually like I'll have my longer workouts on the weekends. And I think the biggest thing for me is just like waking up early. My friends call me a grandma, but like I always sleep at like 10 p.m. and wake up at 5 a.m. And I think that's the biggest thing for me, is to keep me very organized and structured. I also schedule like almost every minute of my day out. So when I have like certain things I need to do by certain time periods, and I just try to adhere really strictly to that to make sure that I get everything done. And I like using like Pomodoro intervals to study. So I'll do like 50 minutes on, 10 minutes off, or like 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off. And I'll try to like adhere to that really strictly and like not use my phone, not respond to any text messages, because like that's very helpful. It definitely can get overwhelming sometimes. So I think for me, the most important thing is just having a really great community. I have super awesome and supportive friends who are there for me when it gets stressful. And then also just in like a triathlon realm, triathlon is very stressful. There have definitely been times where I have like fallen apart after a workout or during a workout just because like it's hard or I'm not like hitting paces I need to hit, or I'm getting dropped, or I just like I'm not feeling it that day. And so when that happens, like I have a very supportive community I found in New Orleans. Next Level Triathlon, I have two coaches, Todd and Brandon, who are kind of like father figures to me, and they play a really big role in like keeping me motivated and encouraged. And there's definitely has been times like the past few months where I'm just like I feel burned out because I don't really need to be working out 15 hours a week just for like general fitness, but I'm doing it anyway. So I think having community has been super important for me to just stay motivated and keep like working towards goals, even though like the future of races are super uncertain.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I think I speak for all of us. I really admire your work ethic. I think that's really awesome. I was wondering, because you have such a strict and really amazing work ethic, how do you, I guess, when you are up against obstacles, like how do you overcome that? Is it more of like a mindset thing, or do you just kind of work through that? And I guess in your field, what might have been some of those obstacles?
Yeah, I think there's like orthopedics is very competitive, so I definitely have to work very, very hard. Just like in general in school with studying and with research, there's like a constant pressure to be like a top performer. Um, and it definitely can get very stressful. I think for me, learning flexibility has been really important, like understanding that sometimes like I can't get through everything on my checklist because there's just physically like not enough hours in the day. And then I also think that uh, just leaning on my friends and my family has really helped. My coach has this like saying where he talks about his uh, he talked about like when he did an Ironman, he's like, yeah, I'm gonna finish this race no matter what. Like, and the only reason I won't finish this race is because I'll die. And like, it's super crazy. And like, triathletes in general are like all kind of insane. But that's kind of like the mentality that I try to approach my general life with, where it's just like, if I set a goal for myself, I'll try to do whatever it takes to accomplish that goal, regardless of like whatever obstacle is there. And usually I would say like most obstacles are surmountable. It just takes a lot of like dedication. And then also like I would like to say like I definitely don't do things that other people my age do just because of time restraints. Like I'm not a huge drinker. I don't really like go out late. I don't like party very much. I don't watch TV. I don't do things that I feel like other people may do just because like I only have so many hours in a day, and it just kind of depends on like what your way of de-stressing is. But for me, my way of de-stressing from medical school is like biking 80 miles on a Saturday, which is weird, but like I think it just really varies for different people depending on like what you want to do. And I know that like in collegiate athletics it's a little different because you guys are there and you're like getting paid to be there essentially. But I would just say like school is also important, and if you can like I approach athletics at least as like a respite from school. And I know that like at least in triathlon, any like progress that I make will mentally strengthen me, and then that will help me with school. So that's kind of like how I approach it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Also, I have more questions, but anyone who has any questions in mind, please feel free to raise your hand or ask them in chat. I was wondering, so you mentioned, kind of the field of orthopedics, and I think you're hoping to become, um, oh shoot, I think my Wi-Fi is frozen. That's unfortunate. Did it?
We can hear you, Hal.
Oh, okay. Sorry, everything got frozen for me. Um, I know that orthopedic surgery is generally kind of like a male-dominated field. I was wondering if you've um, had to go through any obstacles through that, or if you've ever kind of noticed that.
Orthopedic surgery is definitely a very male-dominated field. I actually just recently published a paper looking at work-life balance between male and female orthopedic surgeons, and it found that while male and female orthopedic surgeons work the exact same amount, female orthopedic surgeons do the majority of the childcare, like 12 plus hours a week, cooking, cleaning, laundry, household chores, while male orthopedic surgeons have their spouses do it. So it's kind of like this expectation that exists for like even the most highly educated woman, where you're like, oh well, you know, you have all this education and you're a surgeon, but you also need to fulfill all the gender roles that are usually expected out of women at the same time. So I think that like the only way to like change that dynamic in orthopedic surgery is to have more female orthopedic surgeons. And I've definitely experienced like microaggressions myself, where I've been shadowing an orthopedic surgeon and they've made comments like, oh, but like, have you ever thought about your biological clock? Or they've like made comments about like my size. I'm like a small person, I'm 5'3", or my like physical strength, which I think is kind of silly because I'm pretty strong. And other things. And I think that like, at least if anybody in this chat is interested in orthopedic surgery, you don't need to be like a giant football player to be an orthopedic surgeon. Like you need to be strong, but all of you are strong enough to do it. And you shouldn't like let any comments from male orthopedic surgeons or anyone else otherwise deter you from doing something that you want to do. And I think like the reality is that, yeah, orthopedic surgery has the least amount of women out of every surgical subspecialty. There's less than 5% women in the field. And the only way that that's going to change is to have more women enter the field. And unfortunately, like as a woman, you're just going to have to deal with a lot of comments that are not great or a little unsavory. But I think part of the advantage of athletics, at least, is that it gives you mental strength and toughness to push through. Because I know that I'm probably going to have to push through a lot of not so great comments and microaggressions for a majority of my career, but my goal is to be in a position in the future where I'm like in academic medicine as like a professor, or I can serve as a mentor to other female like students interested in orthopedics, and then, you know, tell them like, hey, despite what everyone says, like you can literally do whatever you want because that's just how the world works. So yeah, I think that there's definitely a bias, but I don't really think it matters. And anyone that tells you that you're not strong enough to do orthopedic surgery has no idea what they're talking about. So.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, I agree. I was wondering, with all your training, because you're so serious about it, and also clearly very serious about the field that you want to go into in your career. Was it ever hard to incorporate training into your schedule, or was there ever a point where it was, you weren't sure if you could, both have a life in being a triathlete and working in orthopedics?
Yeah, I think it's it's definitely been hard to incorporate. At least just like being a triathlete and being a medical student has been a lot. But honestly, like people in medical school are super amazing and people do super amazing things. I think it just depends on like what you want to spend your time with. Like I'm at Tulane Medical School and I have classmates that are like mothers of like multiple children, which is insane to me because I can like barely take care of myself, and like having to be in medical school and then also taking care of like children, like women do that. I know I have like 2 or 3 classmates that are mothers, and then I have other classmates that are doing a lot of like amazing things in criminal justice reform and are like really involved in the community. I have classmates that are like getting their MPH and MD. I have classmates that are getting their MD, MPH, and PhD. So I think that like people in medical school are super busy, but I really believe that like you can make time for anything that you want to make time for if you care about it and you're willing to like sacrifice some other things. So I wouldn't say like I'm special in any kind of way. I just think that like the things I choose to spend my time on are probably a little bit different than most people, but people do really amazing things in medical school, and people are very successful in medical school while still doing everything that they want to do. So I really think that it's just like it's just really a concept of like time management. I managed to like almost miss 0 training days except for 1 week where I thought I might have had coronavirus, but I didn't. But like that was the only week I didn't train, essentially from like, I think it was like April to no, it was like March to like this week. So I've managed to like make it work, and like it's definitely been hard at times, but for me, it's like, honestly, if you think about it, it's like 1 to 2 hours a day. And like, if you eliminate all the time you probably spend like procrastinating on your phone or being on Facebook or like being on Instagram, like 1 to 2 hours a day is not that much time. So I think that it's reasonable.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Mark, do you have a question?
Yeah, so I was wondering, and it's very admirable that you can kind of push your way through this pretty rigorous schedule. And so you were saying how, rather doing things like partying and all that, you train, you don't procrastinate and all that. But I was wondering, do you ever get kind of like burned out? Because I know for like me personally, if I have like just a week where I really go insane, afterward I just need to like take time to decompress. But it sounds like that have you like trained yourself out so that you can like consistently fit everything into your day?
I think like, I mean, I've kind of accepted that there are going to be weeks where I just feel burned out, and there definitely have been weeks where exercising has felt like a chore to me and not fun. But the nice thing for me about having a coach is like, I've literally texted my coach before and been like, hey, I feel burned out. I'm like, I don't know what to do, and this and that. And then my coach has like adjusted my schedule, and he's like, okay, let's take out some workouts, let's just like focus on this, focus on that. And that actually happened to me recently. Like, I think 3 weeks ago, another Ironman was canceled, and like the probability of me racing this year is like very low. And so I was really not sure like what to do, and school was starting, and I was kind of like, I'm so burned out, I can't, like, I don't know if I should continue like this crazy training schedule. And then I told him, and he was like, I think you need to like work out with people, like not just work out by yourself, because usually during the week I'm just like working out by myself all the time. And so this past week, like, I've made an effort to like run with people. I like bike in different groups. There's like a cycling group that I bike with on Fridays. It's just like a bunch of, it's like a lot of older men and then me, but like it's really fun. We go really fast, and then I am like riding and running with different people during the week. So I think like mixing it up for me and like having someone else to do it with is like a big factor. But I don't think I get burned out as easily as maybe some other people, just because of like how rigorous medical school is. I feel like I've kind of gotten used to it just being like crazy at all times, because like medical school is hard, and there's just a lot of material being thrown at you at like all times, and so you kind of just have to be moving really quickly. But also like I have a really great group of friends that like I can reach out to and be like, hey, I'm dying, and they will like talk to me and support me and be there for me. And they don't like, none of them are as crazy about exercising as I am, but they like wholeheartedly support me. So I think that a community is really important for not getting burned out, at least for me.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, and definitely something that I think is a really great mindset for a lot of people to adopt. I think we have two questions in chat. If you can pull that up and read those, that'd be awesome.
Oh yeah. Okay, from Jennifer Hunt, you mentioned that you schedule every part of your day. Also, Pomodoro technique, can you discuss what these are and why they work for you? So yeah, I actually use this app called Things, and like I'm very organized in the way that I like split my time and how I devote like different aspects of my time. So in college, what I would do is like every Sunday, I would go through the entire week, and I was like, okay, what do I need to get done? What are like my number one priorities? And then like, what are my number two priorities? And then what are my number three priorities? And I would put my workouts in first, and then like anything that like was required, like I had to go to class or something like that. And it's the same with medical school. And then after that, I would like basically create my schedule based on those priorities. And I was like, okay, I need to get these things done by this day. So I would split it up in a way that was reasonable. And then I would be like, okay, I need to get other things done on this day. And so now my schedule is a little different. It's like, because I have boards in, like I have boards next year, which is essentially like step one. It's like this exam I have to take that basically will determine my whole career. I like wake up, I work out, I study boards for an hour. I do my reviews for like previous medical school material for an hour, and then my goal is to like start studying new material by like 11 or noon, and then I'll do that for like 4 or 5 hours. I'll do some practice questions for boards, I'll eat, and then I'll either work out again or I will do like 2 to 3 hours of research work since I have a lot of other research stuff going on. So that's like kind of how I base my schedule. Pulmonary intervals are just, you can use like a timer. I have like an app I use, but it's just like this idea that if you have like timed intervals, I'll do like 25 minutes on, like don't look at your phone, don't look at anything, don't get distracted, and then 5 minutes where you can like look at your phone, check Instagram, whatever. And that helps me stay focused because it's like very tempting to check Instagram or Facebook all the time. But if I do that, I wouldn't get anything done. So I try to like work in Pomodoro intervals and make sure that I'm like staying on track. And then at the end of the day, you can like keep track of how many intervals you do, which is usually what I do just to make sure that like I'm studying in a way that's efficient, because on days that I'm not doing as many intervals, I'm probably getting distracted. So. And then Lauren has a question. It's easy to imagine how being an athlete can interfere with studying, but how does being an athlete actually make you a better student, especially in ortho? I love being an athlete. I feel like, especially endurance athletes, you can get into this like headspace where it's like everything sucks, but it's also amazing at the same time. Usually like at the tail end of a very long run or a very long ride. And I think that area is where I thrive the most. So in aspects of studying, like when it gets difficult or you have to concentrate for really long periods of time, I feel like working out, at least for me, really gives me the endurance to study super hard, because at least when I start studying after I've already woken up at 5 a.m. and worked out in the morning, that's like a great way to start my day, because I've already started with like being productive, taking care of myself, taking care of my body. And now I have like a lot more energy to just sit and study, because sitting is a large part of studying. And I feel like if I sat all day, I would go insane. So it's important for me to just be able to like exercise. And then I take a break sometimes later and like we'll exercise again. But I just try to be as active as possible. And for me personally, like that helps me stay focused and like also remember material faster, sleep better, all of that stuff.
Cool. Yeah, I know as an athlete, I always just feel better when I'm able to train, and I can definitely kind of see a change in like my attitude and mindset as well. I know, we're all, or at least a good amount of us in the speaker series are in high school, and we're kind of trying to figure out what we want to do when we're older, whether that's in athletics or just in a career. So I was wondering on how you decided, you wanted to go to med school, you want to work in orthopedics, even just finding, triathlons. I don't know how long you've been doing it, but kind of how you found those paths for your life.
Yeah, so in high school, I played basketball, and I've always like been kind of in sports. Like I did track for a little bit, mostly was a basketball player. Went to college, was really not sure like what I wanted to do. I like kind of was pre-law, kind of was pre-med, but was very unsure. I think my biggest recommendation for college, at least, is that if you're interested in something, you should just pursue it. I wouldn't worry too much about like the end goal, because I think a lot of these like professional schools, they're looking for now like somebody that is interested in something, passionate about something, and is like willing to take leadership. So in college, I majored in neuroscience and history. I wasn't necessarily like a very like hard science kind of person. I didn't do like any work in orthopedics necessarily in college, but I did athletics throughout all of college with triathlon. And I think in college, I really just like pursued things I was passionate about. And then I kind of ended up in medical school through experiences that I had in college that showed me that I think like my future career, I would be happiest like individually being able to take care of patients and talk to people and interact with people in that way. I worked a lot in settings with disadvantaged patients. I worked a lot with individuals experiencing homelessness on Skid Row. And I also worked a lot with like individuals that had survived genocide through like the history department. So I did a lot of like very different things that aren't necessarily like you would think, oh, this person's going to medical school. But I think all of those experiences helped me figure out that like I wanted to do something that served people and served vulnerable people. So that's kind of how I ended up in medical school. And then I think just like the hands-on aspect of orthopedics, the ability to like fix something with your hands, like the physicality of it, the almost like endurance aspect of it, because you're standing in surgery, like you have to focus, you're doing these like long procedures, the like puzzle aspect of it, all of that stuff I really, really enjoyed. And so I'm the kind of person that like, once I'm okay with deciding something early and then just working towards that. And I think in medical school that's helpful, because then you can just target all your research towards one field. But in college, I would say like you guys should try to just explore your various interests, because there's a lot of different things you can do, and it's difficult to like really choose something when you're 18, because you change so much between when you're 18 and like I'm 24. So I think it's just like, you know, continue athletics if you're passionate about it, and you know, later if that's what you want to do, then you should pursue it. But I would just keep an open mind in college. I know it's like difficult because it's online. Well, it's going to be online for a lot of you, but yeah, I would say like just try to find communities that you can interact with virtually. Like when I was in quarantine in California, I was training and in medical school full time, and I was like in this Facebook group for triathlon, and I never met any of these people, but I was like posting my workouts there, and everyone was very supportive, and it was like a very encouraging environment, and it made me kind of feel like I was a part of something, even though I was like by myself in quarantine and only working out by myself. So I would definitely encourage you guys to like utilize social media and Facebook groups and things like that. That's been really helpful for me.
Gotcha. Yeah, thank you. And I think that's really helpful to always kind of keep in mind finding different communities and environments. I was wondering if you find, like, do you think that like where you ended up going to college, you know, USC or Tulane now, shaped your interests, or I guess where you are now? Or do you think, I don't know, my question isn't very well thought out, but I guess, you know, since we are in high school, I'm even thinking for myself, kind of that path of finding where you want to go, I guess.
Honestly, I don't think that where you go to college matters that much for graduate school. I would say it almost doesn't matter at all. I think like where you go to college should just be more dependent on like things that matter to you. So if like being close to family matters to you, then like be close to family. If saving money like matters to you, which it should matter to all of you because there's loans are very expensive, then like you should save money, because in the end, a lot of people that I know in medical school, like they all got there through different paths, and it really doesn't matter like what college you go to. Like not everybody that goes to medical school is from an Ivy League. I went to USC. I know lots of people that came from smaller colleges, larger colleges, Ivy Leagues. I think college is just really a place for you to figure out what you want to do and how you want to do it. But I don't necessarily think the name of the college matters as much as people make it out to. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but I don't really think where you go to college determines your career path. Because like my brother and I, for example, went to very different colleges. I went to USC and he went to Washington University in St. Louis. He was like, you know, he did anthropology and biology, had like really good GPA, really good scores. And he ended up in medical school at Tulane with me. He's actually first year. So we had like completely different things that we did in undergrad, and we literally ended up at the same place. So I really think that goes to show that it doesn't necessarily matter what you do in college. It kind of just matters on like how you go about pursuing your passions, and then also deciding later like what is it you're interested in and how are you going to get there. But the college itself, I don't think it matters.
Gotcha. Yeah. And I guess, so I'm going through a lot of questions just because everything you said is really interesting to me. But I'm curious, it's kind of very different from the last question I asked, but you've kind of touched on it here and there. But I was wondering kind of what work you do in sports medicine right now with Tulane, and kind of your experiences of medical school so far.
Yeah, so I do a lot of research with the Tulane Sports Medicine Department. Specifically, I do a lot of statistics. So I like took a statistics course in college, and I would say like that was probably the number one most useful skill that any of you can get if you ever want to do research of any sort of at all. Because I think a big thing that people don't understand or know how to do is just numbers and research. Like you can't have any research without results or understanding how to like take data and create results. So I I did statistics work in college. I did it with the history and department, and I was working with the Shoah Foundation, which is like a genocide research institute, and did statistics with them. But then in medical school, I actually spent a lot of time learning statistics and honing my skills. And so I would say like the majority of all the research I'm doing with the orthopedic department is statistics based. I do like the statistics for their surveys, and then I'll do like data analysis and data trends. I recently had another paper published in Core Clinical. It's like a clinical journal of orthopedics, where we were looking at trauma within the stay-at-home period in New Orleans, and essentially like I did the statistics for it, and it showed that during the stay-at-home period, while the traumatic injuries decreased, gunshot wounds actually increased. And so that's like one of the examples of the work I've done. I'm also doing like database research projects. So there's like a database claims research project, which uses like data from Medicare and Medicaid. And I'm using like all of the data from that to look at trends in stress fractures among female athletes, and then also ACL tears among female athletes, just seeing like, oh, like is it like what kind of age groups have more incidence of stress fractures? How's that related to like BMI, hypertension, um, other comorbidities? Same with ACL tears. What other things am I doing? I'm doing like some different research on COVID-19 and orthopedics. I'm doing like a retrospective review on COVID-19 and fractures. And so all of this research, I think, is basically because I have a very specific skill set, which is statistics. So that has really helped me get a lot of research. And I think that if research is something that you're interested in at all at any point, you should like learn statistics, because I cannot tell you how helpful it is to understand how to like manipulate numbers. And there's a lot of doctors that publish in these really great journals but don't necessarily know how to do like the specific statistical tests you need to write the results sections of these papers. And so some of them hire a statistician, but then some of them want medical students to do it, which is good for me because it allows me to get a lot of publications, which is helpful for my career. So yeah, I'm doing a lot of different work in the orthopedic department. I'm looking into trying to get on some papers that are looking at like biomechanics. And so, you know, you put like ACLs or different like joints under a machine and you stress them, and then you see like what happens. Like you're looking at grafts, different types of grafts, like autografts, allografts, things like that. So there's a lot of exciting research being done in orthopedics right now. Orthopedics, especially as a field, has really progressed in the last like 15 years. A lot of things that, you know, used to require a lot of physical strength no longer do. You have a lot of like better technology, better techniques, which is why like it's ridiculous to say that a woman can't do orthopedics because of physical strength, because it's just not true. But yeah, so I'm doing like a lot of research in that aspect. I'm personally interested in sports medicine, but I'm also interested in trauma. I think I could probably do either, but the most important thing right now is just like set myself up for success to match into orthopedics, which is going to be like at the end of my 4th year of medical school.
That's awesome. That's really, really cool work that you're doing, and I know I'm super impressed, and I'm sure everyone else is as well. And it's clear that you have like a lot of really cool like short-term and long-term goals. And I was curious if there were any times where you couldn't really find a goal, or those goals weren't very clear for you, and how you kind of got through that, how you worked towards something, if that makes sense.
I think in college I didn't have super clear goals just because I wasn't necessarily sure like what I wanted to do. I was like interested in law, and then I was also interested in medicine, but I didn't necessarily want to do basic science research because it didn't interest me. And I wasn't sure about like doing like legal type research because that didn't really interest me. I wanted to do a lot of like community outreach stuff, and I was on the debate team, so I was able to do it through that. I did a lot of like community outreach through debate. We put on like public debate projects. I helped coach debate to like areas of Los Angeles that were lower income. But I think I was kind of not sure what I wanted to do for the majority of college, and that was difficult. And I think at the end, like at the very end, I kind of just made a decision. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna pursue medicine. I'm gonna finish my pre-med courses. And I think sometimes like it's hard to know what you want to do, but I personally find that it's easier for me to work towards a specific goal than to have a ton of options. I have a lot of classmates that are still not exactly sure what they want to do, but I kind of entered medical school knowing that about myself from college, how I wasn't exactly sure, and kind of deciding like, I'm gonna do anatomy, and then based on what I like anatomically, like I'm gonna choose a specialty, and I'm just gonna work towards that specialty. And so that's kind of like what's worked for me. And I think that it's good to have very clear goals in graduate school because you're like literally working towards something that's going to be your definite career. But I think that if you don't have super clear goals in undergrad, like it's okay. I think that I was sometimes stressed because I felt like I didn't have clear goals, but it's definitely okay. You don't have to have clear goals. And I think part of the undergrad experience is to like figure out what your goals are going to be in the future, if that makes sense. I don't know if that answered your question.
No, for sure. And yeah, I know it's hard for me personally to kind of know where I'm going next, especially since I'm just in high school. Some things are kind of
Yeah.
up in the air, so I'm trying to figure out those goals. So
You
yeah,
have
no,
a
that's
lot of time. Like you'll change a lot in college and then also like out of college. So I know everyone's like, don't stress about it, but I really don't stress about it. Like it's a lot of time. Like I think I changed the most through college more than like any other period of my life. So yeah.
cool. Yeah. Um, Sorry, I've asked a lot of questions, and I'll try to think of more. But if anybody has uh, any other questions, please feel free to raise your hand or put them in chat. Anisha, I don't know if you have, just any kind of general advice for student athletes or, just students kind of going into these new phases of their life where, like college and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, one piece of advice I would give you is don't feel like just because everybody else is doing something, you have to do it. I think that it's easy to go into college and see like, oh, everyone is like joining a sorority, or like everybody is like doing this one thing on Friday night, or everybody is doing this one thing. But I think that like you can find communities that like value the same things that you do and don't necessarily do things like everybody else. Like at USC, which is a very like, it's a huge football school. It's like, it has like a reputation of being like a party school. Like that is not necessarily what I did. I joined the debate team. I spent Friday nights like with debate and like traveled all over the country with debate, which was really fun. And I joined the triathlon team and met a lot of different people through that and traveled with them. And I had a really good experience in college, but I kind of shaped my college experience based on things that I wanted to do, not based on things that everybody else did. And so, like I feel like FOMO is kind of like a really big thing for people like entering college, where you feel like, oh, everybody's doing this one thing, so I have to do it. But I personally have never felt like I've ever missed out from like going to bed at 9 on a Friday night instead of like going out and like going to a party with other people, because I know that like I'm choosing to do that because I'm going to get up in the morning and ride my bike 80 miles, and that is going to make me happier than going to that party on Friday night. And so I think it's just like a personal choice. And like if going to the party makes you happier, then like go to the party. It's totally fine. But I think that you don't have to like necessarily do things just because everybody else is doing them. I think is like my biggest piece of advice. Because I definitely don't. And I never have really felt like I've been missing out. I think that like my schedule is a lot more stringent than most 24-year-olds, but it's always a personal choice for me, and I always feel like I'm gaining something personally from it, and I'm gaining personal happiness from that. So I never feel like left out or like I'm missing out on something, because I know that like there's time to do that later, and like this is just what I choose to spend my time on now.
Yeah, no, I think that's really helpful advice, and I think it's definitely something that I know personally. Sorry, so many cars are going by right now, but it's something that I think I'll definitely keep in mind. And I guess kind of one more question popped into my head, just because it's something that I think about just as like a student and an athlete, and I know in college it can be a little bit hard to maintain this, but I know you do like a lot of cooking and stuff like that. So I was wondering, like how kind of like diet and nutrition kind of goes into like all your training, and even just being like a student, and even just finding time to just have fun with things outside of maybe those two immediate goals.
Well, like in triathlon specifically, diet and nutrition is super important. Everyone calls it like the fourth sport, but that's like a whole nother thing I won't get into. But I, that was like a learning experience for me because I kind of just did it randomly before I got coached. And then my coaches were like, yo, if you're going to bike like for 4 hours, you need to be taking in a certain amount of calories and nutrition during that time. And I was like, oh, you're right. So that's been a learning experience for me. I actually had no idea before this year. As far as nutrition in general, I think, you know, I love cooking. It's just like another one of my hobbies. And my brother who lives with me also loves cooking. So cooking is like another way for me to relax pretty much. Um, we like meal prep on weeks that we're busy, but I do try to like make dinner pretty frequently just because it's fun. I don't really like have a diet because like I honestly burn too many calories to restrict myself from eating anything at this point. But I don't know. I don't like drink soda. I don't like eat any processed foods. I make a lot of like Indian and Asian food, and I just try to generally eat like pretty healthy. I think that like uh, mixing it up makes it easy to keep things healthy because like we're never really like eating out. We always like just cook at home. Um, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I have like a food Instagram that I like sometimes update if I have time. But I think in college, what I did was I would, because you'll be really busy in college. In college, I also like cook for my roommates and like they would help me cook and stuff. But I would make a ton of food on Sunday and then I would cook on Wednesday and then sometimes I would cook on Friday. But other than that, like I would just meal prep everything and I basically like lived off egg sandwiches and I still live off egg sandwiches because they're just like super amazing as a breakfast food. It has like everything you need in a sandwich. But yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I know personally, I really like to cook and eat, especially. So
Keep cooking. Like don't like. I know. I mean, you guys are saved from dorms because dorm food sucks. But like, yeah, keep cooking. It's like the best part of being an athlete is you can do whatever you want. So.
yeah, I think that's part of the reason I am an athlete, to be honest, just so I can keep eating. But yeah, I think that's kind of as many questions as I have. If anybody has anything else, just put it in chat or, of course, raise your hand. I've said that like 3 times, so I think you guys all know. But, until anybody has any other questions, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to, yeah, Mark. Thank you so much for taking the time today to speak to the group. I know some people kind of had to go in and out, but I really appreciate you taking the time, and thank you everyone for joining today. And just so everyone knows, I'll be uploading the YouTube recording either tonight or tomorrow morning, and I'll put the link in the Skype group chat. Also, if you're not a part of the Skype group chat and you want to be, just email me or DM me on the Instagram. And just for people who want to come next week, we're going to have Andrew Johnson, who is he is a past OHSer from Stanford Online High School, and he's a fencer who got recruited by Princeton and is going to Princeton for fencing. So he's going to talk a little bit about that and college recruitment and stuff next Sunday at 2 o'clock Eastern time, like normally. So yeah, that's pretty much it for me. But if anyone has anything else to add, go for it. Cool. Okay. Well, thank you guys so much for coming today, and I will hopefully see you guys next week. Bye, everyone. Thank you.